Claude's new ad just went viral. And I don't think the whole point of it was to bring in new leads. I think for me, it was more of a brand awareness type video where it's like
Mhm.
contrasting itself between all the other, AI services out there, ChatGPT, Perplexity. And so Anthropic's Claude really wanted to separate itself and is putting more of an artistic and existential narrative behind the human AI partnership by putting the problems, you see this in like the beginning of the ad and then to like the solutions, right? And it's just kind of positioning itself as being more of a thinking partner for humans as they, are searching for answers that, as compared to Perplexity. I'm comparing it here to the Perplexity ad that they launched a couple months ago, where they had Lee Jung-jae from Squid Game. And that one also went, viral. And they were kind of approaching it from like a different angle where it's like a more entertainment driven and having that, celebrity power. So it's like really interesting to kind of contrast, those two, because they're, direct competitors a little bit more so than ChatGPT because they're, almost at the same level, whereas like ChatGPT is so far outside of that, that it's like now you're kind of giving people the optionality of like, well, what's the type of AI that you want to like work with? Is it one that's like, warm and like thoughtful and like works with you? Or is it one that's like, a little bit more like playful and like you'll remember that they were mocking Poogle. And they also had like different production choices, right? Like the Anthropic has more like retro aesthetics and a little bit more like emotional storytelling, which you're seeing a lot more in a lot of like the startup like product launch ads that we're seeing recently. Whereas Perplexity had, it was a more high budget production. And had that, celebrity endorsement there. And you've also seen that like they're going more celebrity, right? Like if you watch Formula One, you know that Lewis Hamilton has the Perplexity logo on his helmet, when he's racing every week. He's also done a couple of tweets where he said like, question like, hey, ask Perplexity, and he asked like a question. I think the last one was like, who scored the most, laps on this like race, and it was like he was the answer. So I thought that was like, funny, but it is interesting that they're kind of going up against each other, and going about it in a different way. And I think that that's like a way that like, companies that are placing themselves up against competitors, what they can do to think about like the type of consumer that they want to bring in, what their brand, what their value is, what the mission is, and then, do an ad around that or a campaign around that, in order to make it clear like the type of, consumer that you want to bring in. And I think that that makes it more likely for your audience to find you and then want to use, you instead of the variety of the other competitors that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, I was trying to watch the video.
The
I
Perplexity
I
one?
the Claude one,
Mm.
and honestly, I don't know, I think it's just not for me because I couldn't get through it. I was just like, "This is so boring," like, they're saying the same thing over and over again, and I was
Hmm.
like, "Is this how long is this? Like 10 minutes?" It's like I think it's like 90 seconds. I was like, "I can't watch it." So I think maybe it's not for me, and that's
Hmm.
okay.
Hmm.
I
Did
think
you
it's
watch the Perplexity one?
no, I didn't see that one either,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I'll
Hmm.
just say that. Like, I think it's interesting that they are running these full campaigns. I don't know where the Claude one is gonna air. I mean, it's clearly an out of it's I know it's an out of home ad,
Hmm.
so it's gonna have a bunch of spots. It'll be on like Netflix and Hulu. They're doing some print stuff with the New York Times and Wall Street Journal. So they're doing a lot of stuff. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it does. I mean, I think with the way people are feeling about AI, and I
Hmm.
say when I say people, I mean people in general,
Mm.
I think it's an opportunity for these companies to try to position themselves where it makes sense for you to use our technology.
I mean, the way I see it, it's like you clearly have this, giant that you're competing against, right? OpenAI's ChatGPT, like they own so much of, the market that it's just really hard for any of these other ones to stand out. So you got to do something, right? You got to like, is it maybe the type of consumer that we're going after? Is it like the use case, Like it's really hard when it's like they're all I mean, basically the same, right? They're trying to be a better Google, you know? But is that really the most compelling case for why you wanna use an AI? Probably not for most people, you know? We are seeing, like, more examples of, like, one example that just, like, came across my feed was, this guy just had, like, a health scare that ChatGPT helped essentially saved his life because he went to the hospital to the ER, um, when he otherwise wouldn't have. And he later went on to Google to check, like, if he had entered in the same information that he had entered into ChatGPT, what would come up. And like none of the correct information of like what guided him to actually make it to the ER came up. So that's like something to think about where it's like Google is failing at like, giving us the most relevant information. And we've all kind of known that, right? SEO, keywords, all that is kind of like failing. We all know that. We've seen it happen, right? Like a lot of us in marketing, like we've had to change our entire like marketing strategy in order to kind of start working with that, right? And we've talked about that here, right? Where it's like, a new way is like the goal is to try to get into like the AI summaries, right? Um, and so with knowing that, you know, people now are going to start moving over to some sort of AI to like help them for like search. ChatGPT is the obvious one because that's the biggest one. But if, people don't want to, whether they don't like OpenAI, whether, they find something, right? They don't want to be using a specific, type of AI or whatever. Maybe one of these other ones, will help them, right? And I remember there being a time when like Perplexity was the better search algorithm, and then it went back to like, ChatGPT. So there are fluctuations of which AI is the better, AI. Um, so maybe there's an opportunity there for people to, switch. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, what do they do, right? Just give up, like do nothing, I think that that's, the interesting thing here where it's like they're going like for brand and like the type of, user, the use case, and then using that to maybe try to bring in like new consumers. But we'll see, right? Because maybe they're just throwing a whole bunch of money at like paid ads and then not getting any leads from it, you know?
No, they'll probably get leads from
Yeah.
it.
No, never true, but like enough leads, right?
Mhm.
That's like, where we're at. So we'll see. I'm curious, I've used Perplexity a lot. I like this new like Claude ad where it's like kind of speaking more to the humans that don't want to feel icky about using AI, though I mean you're still using it if you know you're using it. But that's yeah, something to think about there. But we'll see. Anyway, the takeaways for me there are yeah, really honing in on the type of user that you're going after and the use case, right? There comes a time where it's like you start seeing the same types of like users if you're, building a brand around that. And usually, that's based on like the founder and like their strategy and what they were trying to build in the first place and like their main goal or insight. And then kind of expanding the target consumer from there. And then, building your brand around that and trying to like, reach your target consumer in a way that gets them to use your product. So I see that that's kind of like what they're doing here. We'll see. Wish them the best of luck, right? And then, when you're competing so directly against, other people that are doing essentially the same thing, like really trying to position yourself in a unique way will have, your target consumer find you in order to, use your product versus, all the others.